2023, the meeting to order to my clock here, 11:02 a.m. First, please give your attention to the short video that Jackie or Colin will play.
Due to COVID-19, this meeting will be conducted as a Zoom meeting pursuant to the provisions of Assembly Bill 361, which suspends certain requirements of the Brown Act. This meeting is being live streamed on the CCTA website. The chair will call upon members, staff, and other speakers by name. Please speak clearly and state your name before giving comments or remarks. Persons participating via Zoom with their cameras enabled are reminded that their activities are visible to viewers. Members participating by Zoom wishing to speak should physically raise their hand and unmute their mic when called upon. Members should mute their mics when done speaking. Citizens participating by Zoom wishing to speak should use the Raise Hand feature or dial *9 if participating via phone, and the chair or staff will call upon them at the appropriate time. Citizens will have 3 minutes to speak. After 3 minutes, staff will lower their hand and mute their mic. Participants via phone will be called upon by the last 4 digits of their phone number. It is requested that public speakers state their names and organization, but providing such information is voluntary. Written public comments received in accordance with the teleconferencing special notice for public comment guidelines are printed on the meeting agenda. If authors of the written correspondence would like to speak, they should raise their hand and the chair will call upon them at the appropriate time. All written correspondence received after that and during the meeting will be entered into the record. A roll call vote will be taken for all action items. Thank you for participating in a meeting of the Contra Costa Transportation Authority.
All right, next we'll go to roll call, and I'll turn it over to Jackie to conduct the roll call.
Thank you, Chair Sarmiento. Okay, Member Byrne.
Here.
Thank you. Member Dugan.
Present.
Member Foster.
Present.
Thank you. Member Karimi. Member Keeshan. Member Olson.
Present.
Member Pinkham.
Here, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, okay. I don't see my picture, so I thought maybe I wasn't connected.
Oh, no, yeah, we can see you and hear you. Thank you.
Okay, I can't see me and hear me, and of course, I like the way I look, so, you know.
Member
Anyway.
Riley.
Glad I'm here. All right. I won't.
Member Riley.
Present.
Thank you. Member Riker.
Here.
Thank you. Member Simmons.
Here.
Thank you. Vice Chair Weeks.
Present.
Thank you. Chair Sarmiento.
Present.
Thank you. Okay, we have all members present except for members Karimi and members Keeshan.
All right, thank you for the roll call, Jackie. Next item on the agenda is public comment. Jackie, have we received any public comment?
No public comment received.
Okay, if there's anyone wishing to speak during public comment on an item that is not on the agenda, please raise your hand and I could call on you. I see Committee Member Olson's hand up. Oli, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Sarmiento. Ole Olson, regular bicyclist. I'm concerned about the East Bay Regional Park's Delta de Anza Trail, western end currently ending at Highway 4 and Willow Pass Road interchange. Bicyclists are then presented with 2 unacceptable alternatives. You can ride your bicycle over the Suicide Bridge on Willow Pass Road to get to downtown Concord, or you can use the Highway 4 shoulder, 8-lane freeway Highway 4 shoulder. Caltrans has indicated that it believes that the Suicide Bridge is in fact a suicide bridge by allowing bicyclists on the shoulder. Over the weekend, I was riding there and a man was pulling his child in a trailer and his wife was there. They were at the interchange when I came up trying to figure out what to do. He headed down Willow Pass Road, pulling the child in the trailer toward the Suicide Bridge, and she was saying we would never go on the freeway. It's too dangerous. So I'm concerned that anybody that uses the Suicide Bridge once never goes on it again. So we have only Highway 4 shoulder, which is an unacceptable alternative. Nobody seems interested in building a continuation of the Delta de Anza Trail. And I'm just concerned. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you for that comment, Committee Member Olson. Any other comments from the public on an item not on the agenda? All right, seeing no hands up, we will move on to the item number 3, which is the consent calendar. Are there any changes or comments from the committee on this item? I should mention the consent calendar just includes the minutes from the May 22nd CPPAC meeting. All right, I don't see any hands up from committee members. Are there any comments or questions from members of the public? Please raise your hand. Okay, seeing none. All right, do I have a motion from the committee members to approve the consent calendar?
This is Member Riley. I'll move.
All right, thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right. So, okay, I have a first by committee member Riley, a second by committee member Riker. So Jackie, if you could take the roll call vote, please.
Thank you. Member Byrne?
Aye.
Member Dugan?
Abstain.
Member Foster?
Aye.
Member Karimi? Member Keeshan? Member Olson?
Aye.
Member Pinkham?
Aye.
Member Riley?
Aye.
Member Riker? Member Riker? Sorry, I think you're.
Aye.
Thank you. Member Simmons?
Aye.
Vice Chair Weeks?
Aye.
Chair Sarmiento?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, motion passes unanimously with members Karimi and Keeshan absent and member Dugan abstaining.
All right. Thank you, Jackie. So we'll move on to item number 4, regular agenda items. The first item on the regular agenda is an update on the San Pablo Avenue Multimodal Corridor Study Phase 2 summary of findings. And this item will be presented by CCTA staff, specifically Matt Kelly. So Matt, I will turn it over to you. So thank you.
Thank you, Chair Sarmiento. My name is Matt Kelly, Senior Transportation Planner with CCTA. It's great to be here. I'm not normally at this meeting, so it's good to see your faces. And hopefully this item will be of interest to you, whether you live in West County or not. What I am presenting is the San Pablo Avenue Corridor the San Pablo Avenue Multimodal Corridor Study. This is something that CCTA, along with WCTAC, our West County Transportation Advisory Committee, or RTPC, and the Alameda County Transportation Committee have been working on since 2018, starting with phase 1. What I'm going to be presenting today is the findings from phase 2 of the study, which really was the meat and bones of the study. Phase 1 just kind of set us up for the deeper analysis done in phase 2. So I'm going to share my screen here. And hopefully you guys can see everything. This does say CCTA board meeting from last month, and this basically is what we presented to the CCTA board. And really this is also what was presented to the WCTAC board earlier this year, as WCTAC was kind of the project manager of this project, but funded by CCTA. And then we participated on the TAC as well. So what we're going to talk about today is the study purpose and background, those findings we found in phase 2, and kind of the options for moving forward from the study. And I want to point out that Leah Greenblatt is here today. She was the day-to-day project manager of this, working with the consultant Kimley Horn. So I'm sure Leah will have some input at some point in today's presentation. So purpose and background. Really, we're looking at the San Pablo Avenue corridor, and as part of this study, we focused on the section in Contra Costa that is serviced by AC Transit, because this was a multimodal study focusing on pedestrians, bicycles, and transit, in addition to the vehicle modes on San Pablo Avenue. We wanted to not be dealing with multiple bus agencies, so it made sense to have the northern boundary of the study be in the Hilltop Mall, Contra Costa College area of San Pablo and Richmond, because that's where AC Transit's service ends, specifically on San Pablo Avenue, but then continuing all the way to downtown Oakland on the Alameda County side. So the goals for this study were really to improve the multimodal conditions for all modes in the corridor, and really improve safety and promote support future growth along the corridor. So those goals, specifically those 5 goals, are accommodate future growth. If you've been to El Cerrito in the last couple of years, you'll know that they've put up hundreds, if not thousands, of new units right on San Pablo Avenue, residential units. So improve comfort and quality of trips for all users, all modes, whether you're riding a bus or walking down the street. Safety for all modes, and support economic development and those adopted land use policies. As I mentioned, El Cerrito, they've got a specific plan on San Pablo Avenue, which is guiding a lot of that development. So we want to be consistent with what the cities are doing, and then promote equitable transportation and design of those solutions to address those equitable transportation issues. So just some background. I think I said we started in 2018. We actually started in fall 2017 for phase 1. That was completed during the pandemic, but we did have a series of public outreach that went on before the pandemic, so the local public was aware of what was going on. And phase 2 was done over the last 2 years. So as I mentioned before, this was led by ACTC. They were studying their part of the corridor. We joined on to add our part of the corridor on, and it was one study for the first phase, and then we broke it off into 2 studies focusing on each county for phase 2. And as I mentioned, the phase work kind of set the foundation for phase 2. We looked at existing conditions, some initial concepts. We did a lot of modeling of the corridor to see what the future conditions would look like. And as I mentioned, we did a couple of rounds of public meetings. So for phase 2, we really wanted to focus in on what could happen in Contra Costa. The interesting thing about the Contra Costa side of the corridor is that the width of the street from curb to curb varies almost block to block as you go from the county line, El Cerrito, up to San Pablo. So block by block, we had different widths ranging from, I think, 72 feet to 82 or 84 feet. And there's a lot of that changes what you can do in every segment of the corridor. So we really wanted to dive in and look at some typical segments and see what we could do. We wanted to look at where we could possibly remove parking to provide a bike facility, a protected bike facility on San Pablo Avenue. We wanted to look at safety improvements, and those focused on bike and pedestrian improvements. The trade-offs or the benefits of a dedicated bus lane, whether that's in the median or side running, and effects on vehicular traffic if we did take a lane for the bus. And we were looking for feedback from all the different jurisdictions to see how that fit in with their plans and what types of concerns they had. And the corridors we were focused on are El Cerrito, Richmond, and San Pablo. So looking at conditions on the corridor today, and this was pre-pandemic when we did most of our existing conditions. So right now we have the 3 routes on San Pablo Avenue, bus routes, the 72, the 72M, and the 72 Rapid. Several buses running the corridor, providing service every 7 minutes south of McDonald Avenue in Richmond. There are bike lanes currently only in San Pablo. I'd say continuous bike lanes in San Pablo, and those are actual bike lanes, up against the curbs. And then in El Cerrito, there are some spot bike lanes that are kind of pilots and part of other projects, but really only 20% of the corridor today has bike facilities. There's long gaps between pedestrian crossings and lots of uncontrolled crossings. Those are starting to be improved, especially in San Pablo, where there are some signalized crossings that are popping up now. And in terms of the vehicular traffic that's using San Pablo Avenue as an alternative for I-80, we found that about 1/3 of all trips are just passing through the corridor. They're not stopping at a store or coming to a residence in the corridor. They are just passing through as an alternative to I-80. So what we'd really like to do is see those cars back on I-80 so we can really use San Pablo Avenue as the main street for West County. And all that data, really tells us that there is potential for mode shift from auto to bus. On safety and congestion. So during the peak period, those buses running up and down the corridor spend 57% of their travel time in congestion. That's not loading and unloading passengers or dealing with, say, a passenger in a wheelchair or something like that, which feels like it can take a lot of time. It's sitting in congestion that is sucking almost 60% of travel time in the corridor. The corridor also has a history of safety issues, mostly involving pedestrians and bicyclists. 73 incidents involving those modes, including 3 deaths. So that's something we really wanted to target as part of this. And over on the right is just a chart showing typical travel times for the local 72 and for the rapid 72. And the red is all those minutes, if not hours, spent in delay. So looking at equity within the corridor, 93% of this corridor, our study area, is within a 1/4 mile of one of MTC's equity priority communities. So basically the entire corridor has equity issues going on. There are 12,500 daily bus riders in the corridor, the majority on that 72 series, and that's more riders than any other AC transit route in the entire system. And the 72 series has 14% of the entire AC transit ridership, which is pretty impressive. And why we know there is potential for more in the corridor. 70% of the 72 series passengers are non-white, and 61% of those of the passengers make less than $50,000 per year. And those are all factors that go into the formation of the or identification of those equity priority communities. So we looked at what, some opportunities to improve transit in the corridor. Right now, really all of this there is the rapid service that, has stops, say, a third of the stops of the local service can go about a half a mile without stopping. And there is transit signal priority at some of the signals throughout the corridor, but as riders of the bus know, those signal priority really isn't utilized on San Pablo Avenue. So we looked at what bus rapid transit could do in the corridor, and the bullets there on the right are kind of the main characteristics of a bus rapid transit system. Dedicated lanes, better TSP, actual stations instead of just bus shelters. They would be actual stations, better access to the stations, branding, as you know, or you may know, AC Transit has the Tempo line on International. It's there, that BRT is branded as Tempo. They have level boardings. You pay before you get on board, so you aren't, dealing with dollar bills or change being fed into the machine, and then just more frequent service because you have dedicated lanes. So here's how you could potentially configure BRT in a corridor like San Pablo Avenue. So on the left, you see the center running bus lanes, and that is what's going on Van Ness Avenue in San Francisco, the new BRT system there. And then on the right, you see side running bus lanes. And there you see one of the Tempo buses running on International Boulevard in, actually that section looks like it's on probably maybe on Telegraph, but it does run, actually no, that's probably in downtown Oakland somewhere, but it does run International Boulevard all the way from San Leandro up through Berkeley. And you have to have a different set of doors for the different types of services. You have to do some, one case the doors have to be on the left, one case the doors have to be on the right. If you're doing median running, you have to do some moving over. If you're going to turn, you have to get out of the median. So there are issues with either type of running, whether you're on the side or the median, but we wanted to look at both. So key findings from our analysis during phase 2. We found that center running bus lanes would provide up to 45% travel time savings for the buses, and that's about 10% faster than side running. So not a huge difference between the two, but you noted that center running does go faster. Side running, it's easier to implement because you don't have to reconfigure the median or remove a median, as there is currently a concrete median for most of the length of San Pablo Avenue, at least in El Cerrito and Alameda County. Center running lanes provide the greatest opportunity for preserving parking and having a bike facility throughout the corridor, because you don't have those things crossing each other. So amongst the study participants and the WCTAC board, there was support for enhancing the transit, but the feedback we heard, there were those who supported going big and going center running, right away, but there was some support for side running, and in general, there was concern about the impacts of a bus-only lane, whether that be on parking, whether that be on the inclusion of a bike facility on the corridor, or other issues. And some of the issues were, getting to the median stations, especially for people with mobility issues. They still have to cross the lanes of San Pablo Avenue and any bike facility just to get to where you would board the bus. So as far as bikes, we found that bike lanes or cycle tracks, protected facilities, are feasible to be implemented, but would impact parking in quite a few locations of the corridor. Right now, as if you've been on San Pablo Avenue, you'll know that street parking is currently plentiful, as well as off-street parking. There is a fair amount of off-street parking. We do know that the development that's going up along the corridor is affecting that street parking and will change the role of that and potentially the need for that. Having a protected bike facility in the corridor would still result in a high stress level for bicyclists using that facility. While it may be protected, you would still have traffic potentially, moving at high speeds on one side, and you still have to access the corridor, and there aren't always safe routes to get to San Pablo Avenue. We also looked at a parallel facility. Right now in parts of Contra Costa County, we have the Ohlone Trail, the Ohlone Greenway, sometimes a block or two off of San Pablo Avenue, sometimes a bit further. But what we heard from riders is that they still need to get to the businesses on San Pablo Avenue, and the Greenway doesn't get them to San Pablo Avenue or along San Pablo Avenue. And then we heard concerns from businesses about losing their parking for a dedicated bike facility on San Pablo Avenue. For pedestrians, we already know that there's safety issues for the pedestrians, mainly in crossings. San Pablo Avenue has a lot of misaligned intersections, so there's not a lot of four-way signalized intersections. There's a lot of crosswalks and misaligned crosswalks that pedestrians are currently having to use. And lighting is also an issue, as well as vehicle speed. So we felt that there were opportunities throughout the corridor to improve pedestrian safety. As the bullets at the bottom mentioned, there were especially concerns about safety for elderly and mobility impaired pedestrians, especially for those crossings and those unprotected crossings. And everybody involved, including the WICTAC board and the CCTA board, supported near-term improvements for pedestrian improvements in the corridor. So we get to our options for next steps. What can we do soon? And first, let's look at what Alameda County is doing. And first, let me mention that Alameda County does have a dedicated source of funding for this, and that they have a newer sales tax measure, BB, that had dedicated funding for the corridor. And leveraging that dedicated funding, they were also able to get funding from a couple of grants in the last few months. So they now have about $50 million set aside for improvements in the corridor. So they are doing safety enhancements throughout the corridor, and that focuses on those crossing issues for pedestrians and bikes, and then improving the bus stops, allowing for transit to basically stop in the lane and not have to move out of traffic, which helps with travel time. They are doing installation of bike and bus lanes in the southern part of the corridor, basically Oakland, Emeryville, and just a tiny little section of South Berkeley, just a couple of blocks. They are converting one auto lane in each direction to a bus lane. They're converting parking to a protected bike lane, and the loading for those businesses will go on the side streets. They're also doing some protected intersection bike treatments, and they will be evaluating everything after the projects are implemented. In the northern part of the corridor, basically from about Ashby to the Alameda County or the Contra Costa County line, they will be focusing on a parallel bike network, but continuing to work with the cities on how they could potentially include a facility on San Pablo Avenue. So in Contra Costa, what the consensus was for moving forward was what we're calling element 1, which are basically bike and ped safety improvements in the corridor. So to work on some design and do some outreach to the businesses along the corridor and residents about those improvements. Work with the cities as well as Caltrans for those agreements so that we can do that work. The request from WICTAC is that CCTA kind of take over the project in terms of leading the design and implementation, the actual construction, because CCTA has more experience with construction management. And, since it does cover, several cities, it made a little more sense. And then the funding part, CCTA does not have another sales tax measure, at least one that's not spoken for yet. Measure J is spoken for, so we need to find funding for that outreach to the design and the actual construction. But in the meantime, we would begin conceptual design and cost estimates to support the full design and construction process. Element 2 is we've packaged that as a pilot BRT project where we would be seeking a volunteer city that would allow for maybe a mile-long pilot along the corridor, so we could see how a side running BRT system would work. We've talked to AC Transit about that. They are willing to participate, but I think they want strong consensus from the local jurisdictions about participation in such a process. We don't yet have a volunteer that's stepped forward that the city has approved yet. We have staff, I think, that's interested, but nothing that's gone before elected officials. So here's a little more detail on element 1. So improving those pedestrian crossings, that includes signals, flashing beacons, new crosswalks, protection if you get stuck at the median, better lighting and higher visibility striping, improved bike crossings on San Pablo Avenue. We don't know what those will look like yet, but that'll be part of the conceptual design. So upgrades for those who need better access, mobility, people with impaired mobility, removing free right turns where possible, the right turn pork chops, as we like to call them. There would be bulb outs at the side streets, which would allow for shorter crossings by pedestrians. Bulbs at 72-hour rapid stops for easier boarding of the buses, and then bus stop relocation and consolidation where it makes sense to speed the buses. And a lot of that is moving the bus stops from the near side of a signalized intersection to the far side. And sometimes that means taking parking, but it really affects bus travel time. So we've identified 40 to 45 intersections that where we could apply these improvements. It can be phased, so they don't all have to be done at once. But there's definitely efficiency and consistency if we were to do these improvements corridor-wide and consistently, a consistent design corridor-wide. So CCTA and WICTAC will be working together to identify the funding and to perform the outreach. We think these 40 to 45 Intersections will cost close to $35 million to fund, $3 to $5 million at each location. And we'll be looking at grants to fund those, but they do require local match. So we'll also be looking for opportunities there. And we'll also be looking for commitments from the local jurisdictions to partner in the design review and the maintenance, because once all this is in place, it will need to be maintained. Element 2, as I mentioned, this is contingent on AC Transit support and full commitment by the cities. As I mentioned, we've had staff level discussions with a couple of jurisdictions, but really we need people to really go, opt in on these at the city level. And further engagement would have to occur if any BRT type improvements were to take place, or even the pilot study. So that's where we're at today. I have some backup slides in case there's any questions, but we've done a lot of work. We're really excited about the work that's done and the recommendations, but we wanted to share it with you and see if you had any questions, concerns, or suggestions for how we might be able to implement these types of improvements sooner. Yeah, so
can I add a couple of other?
Yeah, I was just gonna say Leah's here, so I'm sure she'd like to add something. So hit it, Leah.
Great, thank you. First off, I want to say it's nice to be at this meeting. I served on the CB PAC for many years, so it's nice to see some of these familiar faces. And I just had a couple things that I wanted to reiterate from Matt's presentation. Really kind of, I think that they really kind of help explain the overall work that we've accomplished and want to accomplish along the corridor. So, San Pablo Avenue, at least the segment that we were looking at, covers so many jurisdictions, but, for the typical user of the corridor, they're not looking at it like, oh, this block I'm in Albany and this block I'm in El Cerrito. They're just kind of traveling, whether it's a driver, a pedestrian, or a bicyclist, they're just using the whole corridor. And there's so much development that's occurring up and down the corridor that each jurisdiction is managing. But, there's still the need to have this consistency between facilities, because, and that was the impetus for the project, because some jurisdictions were talking about transit improvements, some were talking about bicycle improvements, some were talking about and prioritizing parking. You can't have this, if you want to have a good transit corridor, a good bicycle facilities, there needs to be this holistic approach to dealing with it. And that's what really helped draw all the jurisdictions and agencies to participate in this study. The other thing that I think was a challenge was the different types of development that are occurring around the corridor. And Matt mentioned this, that the new development, sometimes they have reduced parking standards and they're counting on using the on-street parking more. Some of the cities are counting on using that parking for bicycle facilities or transit improvements. And so again, it's like just looking at this holistically is really key. That said, one of the things we found out in West County is that there's trade-offs, and that Matt mentioned the varying width of the corridor, and because of that varying width, we can't accommodate everything. We want a complete street approach, but realistically, there's not room for parking and separated bike facilities and a transit only lane. So how do we do that? What types of trade-offs are necessary was kind of the overarching issue for this West County portion of the study. And I'll say one thing that AC Transit has pointed out a lot is that for this corridor, which is so heavily focused on transit, there's really no alternative route. The way the street works there, there's not a parallel easy route for buses. And that kind of also contributes to if you do a protected bicycle facility along the corridor. Matt mentioned that the analysis shows that it still would be a high stress corridor. And that's because there's so many driveways along the corridor, at least now, and there's so many offset intersections that it's a difficult corridor to maneuver for bicyclists, even if you do have the dedicated space. So that's just a few of the overarching things that I wanted to point out. I think that nevertheless, what we heard from some of the jurisdictions that, there's still an interest in bicycle facilities along there, regardless of, with the recognition that it could still be a high stress facility. It might just be a little less stressful than what's out there now. So, and I see that there's some questions. Do you want to take those, Matt, or?
Sure.
Actually,
The
Matt,
board chair.
yeah, Matt
sorry.
and Leah, I'll let you let me know if you conclude your presentation or if you have a little bit more to add, and then I could go to a committee comment. So just let me know if you.
I'm done with the slides, Leah.
Yeah, I had my 2 cents.
Okay. Thank you for the presentation, Matt, and for the additional comments, Leah. So I will open it up to comments from the committee, and I first saw committee member Pinkham's hand up, so I'll go to him first, and then committee member Dugan.
Yes, happy to see the process is moving along. It's quite a while since the public meetings, and of course there are these many problems. This is more in the realm of FYI. I've been hooked up lately with the Albany BPAC, Albany Rollers and Strollers, and we have been working on safe routes from BART to the Bay Trail, specifically the one close to me. I live in the Richmond Annex, El Cerrito Plaza, down to the Bay Trail. And we're quite along, fair ways along on that project. And it occurs to me that there's of course the Del Norte BART and so on. And that what I would like to see is that the multimodal corridor plan incorporate San Pablo Avenue crossings for this system, which will probably have signage, et cetera, but safe crossing in various places. So far, they really don't have anything solid. Central Avenue, if you're familiar with it, is just a horrible street for bicycles. And what I'm really hoping is that if this is successful and it's integrated into the multimodal plan, that will see it develop around the bay, that various cities which have difficulty or unsafe routes to BART from their city will develop them. So anyway, that's FYI.
Yeah, I know the city of El Cerrito is working on a access from El Cerrito Plaza to the Bay Trail. I don't think they're probably not going to use Central all the way down.
No.
However, the Central underpass itself is about to get improved by Caltrans as part of a grant that several of the folks in this room worked on a few years ago. I believe Those funds are available in fiscal year 23-24. So that's now.
Central Avenue was out from the
Yeah.
beginning, pretty much.
So I don't know if John Shu, who's in the room today, has any more information on that, but that'll be something you'll be hearing about in the next year or so, I would assume, to allow that safe crossing under I-80.
And I'd just add, I think that the crossings that we've identified improvements to are the ones that are, they're looking at safety issues that have occurred in the past, but also the surrounding land uses. So I think that there is some overlap between where we've identified potential improvements and where those safe routes to BART crossings would occur. So I think, but whatever's happening on the perpendicular streets, we would need to be coordinating with the local jurisdictions on. So,
right, be great to have it, meshed, whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have mapped out some of those locations. Like we do have one
right
at Fairmount and one at Cutting, so each of the BART stations.
All right, next I'll go to committee member Dugan, and then after that, committee member Olson. So committee member Dugan. You're muted.
Yep. Hi, thanks, Leah and Matt. I have all kinds of things that are interesting about this to me, but I'll try to focus my question. I love that you're engaged with ACTC on this as well. We deal with both, and it's whenever I'm involved with the two congestion management agencies, it's they're two different worlds. So to see you working together on this is great. And I'm glad you brought up, Leah, the local jurisdictions, because it looks like that Alameda County may be a little ahead of CCTA, and what they do to the corridor is actually going to dictate kind of what WICTAC or what Contra Costa can do. And so it looked like they were they were putting in rapid bus lanes and protected bike lanes and leaving no parking on the street. And that, I think there's probably some of us on the committee that are fine with all that, but that parking goes somewhere. So when you talk about those local jurisdictions and the side streets that now people are going to be going up and down looking for parking because they're still going to drive, et cetera. So I guess a couple of things, like one is what Alameda County doing or ready to do going to affect what CCTA does, and to sort of dictate or back CCTA into a corner on what can be done on the Contra Costa side?
Yeah,
is kind of my question.
So I don't think so. I think that question has come up, and you're right. They are ahead of us, partly because they do have that consistent width to the corridor, so they don't have to make these transitions. One of the things that we did look at throughout the study was how to make these transitions, and even how to make us transition from side running to center running. So that can occur. Maybe it would occur by BART stations, because that's kind of the logical diversion point for, the buses would go in and out of the stations. Yeah, I mean, there's ways of handling it. There's some things that we still need to coordinate on with Alameda County. It's interesting because in Alameda County, they started out, I think, calling it a demonstration project. And then as the project has developed further, I think that they've realized that, just the amount of investment needed to do the demonstration project that they were thinking of, it's moved beyond a demonstration project. So I think the improvements are going to be more permanent than had been originally envisioned. But they kind of realize that they need a terminus for their project, and that terminus would be somewhere near the Del Norte BART, the Plaza BART station. So I think we're going to have to, because they're going to need a place for their buses to be turning around. So, there's continued coordination that's needed. But, one of the things we've looked at throughout the study is how we can transition improvements along the length.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, and one last thing. The bike lane and the high stress, I think it is worth it to lower the stress level, in my opinion, in any way you can. I think that most of the people that are going to continue to ride on San Pablo are going to be the adventurous crowd. But what that, if there, I know there isn't room and for everything, but what that does is starts to make those arterials and those perpendicular streets that much more important for bike facilities to be able to at least get to the commercial area there. And then that again, the local jurisdictions, working with them to really start, we influence San Pablo, whatever you do here is going to influence the local jurisdictions' bike plans and their pedestrian plans. So anyway, I think I'm glad to hear that you brought it up, that you're working with the jurisdictions, because it's if the biking goes, if it's really difficult to bike on San Pablo, it's going to spread out and make everything else more important.
All right. Thank you, Sean, or Committee Member Dugan. I'll move next to Committee Member Olson.
Thank you, Chair Sarmiento. I'd like to say thank you to WICTAC and Leah, and thank you to CCTA and everybody else that's working on this project. Anything is better than nothing. Sooner is better than later. Keep at it. You're doing great. Hang in there. Thank you. All right, that's all the positive stuff I got to say. Sorry. Okay, so with regard to bike lanes, even unprotected bike lanes are way better than nothing, because we are going to get lots and lots more electric scooters and lots more electric bikes. And it's way better to have these electric bikes doing 20+ miles an hour in a bike lane than it is on the sidewalk. And we're going to have 14-year-olds running these electric scooters blasting down the sidewalk. So let's give them a spot to go, even a not perfect spot. Second, if we could remove the cut-through traffic from San Pablo Avenue and get them back onto Interstate 80, that would reduce traffic by 1/3, according to the research we've done. We already have photographic computers that will take pictures of license plates. I'm sure there'll be lots of people yelling about constitutional rights and that sort of thing, but send the cut-through people a bill. Make a San Pablo Avenue into a toll street if they're going to use it in place of the interstate that we so expensively provide to them. I know that has low probability of happening, but we have the technology to make it happen if we have the will. Second, and I'd like to say I have never been falsely sarcastic in my life. Removing parking, we can't remove parking. Parking is constitutionally guaranteed. All the parking has to remain. Okay, now I'm being sarcastic. The first thing that should go away is parking. Hey, sorry, business owners. This is a public street and we need the street for the public. And then, isn't San Pablo Avenue a Caltrans street, Highway 123, something like that?
It is to
It is.
Cutting
What does
Boulevard.
Caltrans have to say about this? They're the elephant in the room. The rest of us are just mice. And finally, I'd like to say in broad general comment, making driving either more expensive or less convenient is the way we get people out of cars. That was research done about 10 years ago. My personal experience is I have found if we make it more expensive to drive, then people show up at the food pantry asking for a handout there because they have to put gas in the car. They have to repair the car in order to get to work. Otherwise, their entire life falls apart. So making it more expensive isn't going to work. The only other option we have is to make it less convenient. So it seems to me that's what we should do. Dedicated bus lane, yes. Dedicated bike lane, yes. Parking, well, you've already heard my sarcasm about parking. Nice and wide sidewalks, yes. So I'd like to end my tirade with thank you very much for doing this. Anything is better than nothing. Keep up the good work and thank you.
So Oli, you bring up a lot of good points, and I'll say, time is money, right? And one of the things that we looked at is, that transit corridor is that roadway, I should say, that corridor is a heavily used transit corridor. And, being able to shift that or reduce that 1/3 of the vehicles that are using it off of the roadway will help us get transit through the corridor more efficiently. And that transit does serve a lot of low income users. So if we can make it efficient for transit, it's really serving the equity community that lines the corridor. And I can't quite remember the statistic exactly, but at one point our consultant told us something that if we could shift that 1/3 that is pass-through traffic back onto 80 where they probably belong, that represents like a minuscule amount of the traffic congestion on 80. That, I want to say maybe it represents like less than 1/10 or 1% of the traffic. Yet the improvements that could be made to San Pablo Avenue by shifting that are pretty significant. So, I think that's something that we're trying to help people understand that, if we could shift it back to 80, that there's a lot that we can do on San Pablo Avenue.
All right. Thank you, Leah. Actually, we'll move on we have a couple more hands up here. So first I see committee member or Vice Chair Weeks. Go ahead.
Hi, I just have a few interrelated questions. First one is a point of clarification. Why stop at Hilltop for this analysis? Was there a catchment defined for the perimeter of this corridor, or what was the decision?
Matt mentioned the AC Transit limit. Their service area stops around there. The other limiting factor was actually just dollar amounts. Both WCTAC and CCTA contributed to funding the first phase and the second phase. And, realistically, we didn't have funding to go beyond that. So I know our board, there are board members that would like us to extend it. I think we've got a lot on our plate just doing the area that we've done at this point.
Okay, so the reason I asked that question is several fold, but I spend a lot of time biking over there. And I come from Pleasant Hill going over Pinole Valley Road and San Pablo Dam. And this weekend I went to Point Pinole for the first time on bike and was very impressed. That place is beautiful and everyone should know about that and be able to get there. But there's some places along San Pablo, I'm sorry, on, let me get the right roads here. So, because I'm relatively new to talking about this stuff. Along San Pablo Dam that that are outside of the service area a little bit. And I think if there could be some thought paid to kind of point improvements outside of the area you're focusing on, that just maybe look to deal with a very, very dangerous situation. Like for me, on San Pablo Avenue between 2nd and 4th, there's basically no shoulder at all. It just vanishes, and you're going up a hill and you can't see anything. And they're zipping around the corner there. It's super dangerous in that spot. And just having a little bit of shoulder there, just even a foot, would save lives. And so maybe there's something that could be added to this that looks at places that are, are extremely needy, that are outside the service area, but could help complete a somewhat viable regional connection along San Pablo. It just seems to me like that it's really great to do all this dense improvement for this transportation corridor. But there's a bunch of stuff going on just outside of it. And the number of people I saw on bikes at, fishing along Point Pinole was amazing. Every group that came along, bike after bike after bike, and people biking there without helmets, unfortunately, but enjoying our beautiful shoreline. And it'd be a shame if someone was led through a really nice improvement and was kind of just dropped off in Pinole, and they're in the scenario where if they're on the street, they're in serious danger. And I felt that I'm actually a pretty aggressive cyclist that can deal with pretty serious, busy places. But there's a few points on that street that I think would be worth at least noting and getting people's attention to. And then one thing that would be really great to talk about more is bike storage on the vehicles. I think that it's something that, AC Transit's taken the lead on this. So I'm sure if you're working with AC Transit, you have the cutting edge stuff, but having as many bikes as you can stored on the fronts of the vehicles, not just 2 slots, but 3, even 4, if you can do it for BRT. And if you're going to do bike parking at these stations, look at doing something that's more secure. Because in one of those pictures, you showed a station and someone's just got their bike locked to a ADA ramp banister. Looking at having banks of e-lockers throughout the area, I think would be really great improvement. So my 2 cents right there. So thanks for doing the study. Love the work you're doing as far as intermodal transit. And I think people taking bikes to transit, and ideally on, if it's possible, maybe not everyone, but a good portion, and then a good portion of people being able to store bikes securely using e-lockers at these stations, I think would be a great addition. Thanks.
All right, we'll move next to Committee Member Byrne.
Thank you. Really want to echo a lot of what's been said before, and just kind of to tie the gap here a little. When Ollie had mentioned, bike lanes are better than nothing, my immediate gut impulse was San Pablo is too fast, and that got me thinking about designing the corridor for these context appropriate speeds and getting the vehicles off the roadway. And I think there is benefit to add the bike lanes where we don't have these parallel connector streets as indicated. But where we do it, we need to be very mindful of the scenarios that we are putting the cyclists that do feel brave enough to take on the streets, and and designing the curb extensions or other design elements like that to get something more context appropriate where we will be mixing in these modes of travel. And then where we do mix it, to the point that Weeks just mentioned, is providing these gaps, because there are really great facilities in the area. that we don't want to just leave them hanging once we've been provided this great connector for. But yeah, absolutely great work, and it's a very challenging corridor.
All right, thank you for that comment. If there are no other committee member comments, I'll move it to public comment. If any members of the public have any comments on this item, please raise your hand. All right, I don't see any virtual hands up. So I think this should be okay. It's just an update, so no action taken on this. So thank you, Matt and Leah, for providing an update on this item. So we will move on to item B, which is an update on the comprehensive multimodal corridor plan for Interstate 680. And this item will be presented by CCTA staff, Matt Kelly again, and Caltrans staff. Caltrans staff, thanks for your patience. And I'll turn it over to Matt again.
Thanks, Chair Sarmiento. Today I'm here to introduce this item, the I-680. We're shifting corridors from west to central county. The I-680 comprehensive multimodal corridor plan. So there's a theme today, multimodal corridors. As many of you may know, CCTA has invested a lot of time and funds into the I-680 corridor over the years. The most recent improvement has been the southbound express lane, and we're currently going through the environmental process for the northbound express lane. However, not everything is funded within the corridor. And as part of seeking funds for the remaining improvements in the corridor, we've partnered with Caltrans District 4, the Bay Area Caltrans District, to prepare this corridor plan for I-680. I'm going to introduce John Shu and his team in just a second, and he's going to explain to you why we need to prepare this plan, how it positions us, and really why it's important. And it's important to CCTA because it is a multimodal corridor plan that Caltrans is initiating. It's not just focused on zipping cars up and down the corridor as fast as possible. It is another holistic look at this corridor and how we can improve all modes. So I'm just going to I've talked enough today. I'm going to turn it over to John and his team from District 4 to talk about the I-680 MCP, what it's all about and what it can do for Contra Costa. So John, why don't you take it?
Sure. Thanks, Matt. Let me share my screen very quickly. So I hope everybody can see my screen okay. Oops. So good, I guess, afternoon now, everyone. My name is John Shu. I'm with Caltrans District 4. I'm the branch chief and senior transportation planner for system planning East Bay and Santa Clara County branch. With me today are Luisa Lopez and Zach Chop on my team. So we're here to present the I-680 Comprehensive Multimodal Corridor Plan, or CMCP. So many of you are probably not familiar with the CMCP, so let me just go over some of the basics. So first, what is a CMCP? So the CMCP is really to comprehensively identify corridor needs and recommend projects through a collaborative process. I should emphasize that it is a corridor planning document. It is not a project. So the document itself is not like a financially constrained plan or a programming document. So the goal is really to compile a list of projects and to support those projects for funding opportunities. So Matt was alluding to the purpose or the purposes of the CMCP. The purpose is really twofold. The first, Caltrans is required by law to do long-range corridor planning to identify corridor needs and identify projects. And second is to qualify projects for future funding opportunities. One example would be the Solutions for Congested Corridors program under SB1. So this is a new program, and this program specifically requires for a project to be eligible for funding, it must be included in a CMCP. Many of you are probably familiar with CCTA's Innovate 680 program, which is really a package of corridor improvements for the 680 corridor. So within this package, there's the northbound express lane project that Matt mentioned. So this project would likely, or is a regional priority for Caltrans and CCTA and MTC, I would say. And it needs additional funding to complete the development process. So we're looking to submit this project to the Solutions for Congested Corridors program in the next cycle. So to be able to do that, we are required to develop the CMCP to support the funding application. Now, to guide the CMCP development, the California Transportation Commission, or CTC, has developed guidance for CMCP. And this guidance really outlines an 8-step planning process. The basic idea is to collaboratively identify or establish the corridor goals, conduct baseline assessment for the corridor, and then identify potential projects for the corridor. And then from there, you can implement the corridor projects and then do ongoing monitoring and re-evaluation. So the CMCP, or the planning document, is really a final product summarizing this planning process and document some of the findings throughout this process. And this process really emphasizes being multimodal and working together with various corridor stakeholders like yourself. Now, let me talk about the CMCP corridor study limits. So, of course, we're looking at the mainline 680 from the Alameda County line all the way to the Solano County line. We're also including local arterials that would carry some of the parallel traffic. But as Matt was alluding to, the corridor plan is comprehensive, and we're not limiting ourselves to just the highway travel. So we're including rail and transit, such as the new express bus service being implemented along the corridor. There's also the transit supporting facilities, such as the park and ride lots / shared mobility hubs. Of course, we're including active transportation as important modes of the corridor. But as we know, bikes and pedestrians are not allowed on the freeway itself. So we're focused more on freeway crossing opportunities as well as parallel facilities, such as the Iron Horse Trail that runs parallel to 680. So here's the schedule of the CMCP. This says CMCP kicked off last year. During the spring this year, we finalized the corridor goals, which I'll discuss in a minute. We also completed the corridor overview chapter for the CMCP. Right now, we're putting together the CMCP project list, and as well as conducting performance assessment. Throughout the rest of the summer and early fall, we will be doing project evaluation, and from there recommend a list of projects. We're looking to have a draft CMCP by mid-fall, and then the final CMCP by winter 2024. Oh, sorry, let me just go back very quickly there. Another thing I want to mention is that we're emphasizing stakeholder engagement throughout the entire process. There will be multiple opportunities for stakeholders to provide input into the CMCP development. The CMCP works closely with the Innovate 680 team. So we have presented the CMCP to the Innovate 680 Technical Advisory Committee as well as the Policy Advisory Committee. We have also presented the CMCP to CCTA's Paratransit Coordinating Council, as well as the Citizen Advisory Committee. So we're presenting this CMCP here to this group today, but I believe we have other engagement opportunities in the future as well. Next, I will be discussing the CMCP goals. As you can see on the screen here, we have 7 goals for the CMCP. I won't read every one of them to you, but I would note that these goals are consistent with the Innovate 680 goals. This is because when we first started developing the CMCP goals, we realized that there's some efficiency that can be gained from reusing these Innovate 680 program goals instead of reinventing the wheel ourselves. Another aspect of these goals is that they will be used to evaluate projects during the summer, as I was alluding to earlier. So now let me talk about the CMCP projects we have compiled so far. So we have compiled the RTP projects that are included in Plan Bay Area 2050. We have also compiled bike and ped projects from CCTA's Countywide Bike and Ped Plan. We have also collected Caltrans shop projects, which are mainly freeway maintenance and safety projects. But there are also other projects beyond these traditional sources. For example, we have identified a project by the Contra Costa County Flood Control District. That's the Lower Warner Creek Restoration Project, which happens to include an extension of the Iron Horse Trail further north. We have also been in contact with local jurisdictions along 680, and many of these jurisdictions have charging station projects that we're including in the CMCP as well. And finally, we have some internal discussion with our own landscape architecture unit, and they actually have a county corridor-wide vision for 680. So we're including that vision, which can translate into a project level guidance for some of the projects. So here is the map showing all the RTP projects, as well as the potential EV charging station sites that we have collected from various engagement discussions. Of course, you see the express lane project there, but there are also multimodal projects or improvements. As I mentioned, the Innovate 680 program is really a package of multimodal projects. So it's not just about the express lane, but there's also bus on shoulder, mobility hubs, and some of the advanced technology type of improvements as well. There are aux lane improvements and some of the interchange improvements along the corridor as well. I mentioned that we have also collected projects from the Countywide Bike and Ped Plan. So seeing on the screen here is a draft map showing those projects. I should mention that this is still a work in progress. So those numbers you see on this map are the county plan project ID numbers. So we're in the process to update this map a little bit more. For example, we'd like to show different bicycle facility class on this map. For example, we want to show class 1 facility in one color and class 2 projects in a different color. So we're trying to make those revisions to this map still. So the CMCP is really a comprehensive plan covering a lot of different aspects of the corridor. So I've listed some of the potential topics to be discussed in the CMCP. Of course, we want to emphasize multimodal operations as well as connectivity between different modes. We want to review freight and goods movement aspects of the corridor. I've already mentioned charging infrastructure, so that's a popular topic these days. There's the safety concern that we want to address along the corridor, especially the bike and path safety along the corridor. Both equity and climate change are top priorities to the department these days. So we're definitely covering those topics as well. But more importantly, we want to learn from the corridor stakeholders as to what priorities you have for 680. So we have put together a list of questions for you. I'm not sure if we have the time for discussion of all these questions today, but I can make this presentation available after the meeting. So you can review these questions and provide your input, if any. There are 3 questions that we'd like to learn from you. So first one, what additional technical areas of focus should the CMCP include? And number 2, I think that's the most important one. What additional corridor issues or needs do you see from a system performance or end user perspective? And number 3, are there any technical areas that your agency or organization is currently prioritizing or focusing on? So this is really an opportunity for corridor stakeholders like yourself to provide input into the CMCP process, and we will do our best to capture your input in our CMCP. So let me go over the next steps of the CMCP. As I mentioned, we are still compiling corridor needs and projects, and our goal is to try to finalize the project list by early August. And we're also working on different chapters of the CMCP. One of those is the corridor performance assessment. So we will try to finalize that chapter in the coming month as well. I mentioned the collaboration is a key focus area of the CMCP development. So we'd like to collaboratively work with corridor stakeholders to identify, analyze, and prioritize potential corridor projects and strategies. And last but not least, we're working with CCTA staff on opportunities for public engagement. This is because as planners, we want to do meaningful public engagement for our plans, but this is also a required topic by the CMCP guidelines from the California Transportation Commission. So here you see the contact information of myself and my staff. So if you have anything or any questions for us, or if you have any information you'd like to share with us, feel free to reach out to us. And again, we'd be more than happy to meet with you individually or explain in greater detail what the CMCP is about. So that concludes my presentation, and we'd be happy to take questions.
We can't hear you, Chair Sarmiento.
Still can't hear you, Robert.
We still can't hear you.
Maybe the vice chair can ask her questions.
Okay, sorry, Robert. Thanks for your presentation, John. Appreciate it. I think that there's probably people here that want to answer some questions, or ask some questions and get some answers. So it looks like a first hand I see up is Bill Pinkham. Bill,
Yes, it's all very interesting. I want to ask you right now, obviously this process is going to take quite a while, to come back and give us very regular reports on the state of affairs and the priorities, because I'm sure this committee, which represents the whole county, will have some very specific, each of us will have some very specific issues or agreements, disagreements with which bike projects you choose. So please come back on a regular basis. Thank you.
Will do. I'll work with Matt on that.
Okay. Good.
next up, Oli.
Yeah, hi, thank you. Caltrans, as always, is making it faster and more convenient for the motorists. And we appreciate that because from a bicyclist perspective, the more cars that are on the freeway, the fewer cars are on the side streets where the bicyclists and pedestrians are. As part of this project, please, could you work with the local communities and install a continuous bike lane on public streets parallel to Interstate 680? The path is good that's operated by East Bay Regional Parks. However, it is not open 24 hours and the public streets are open 24 hours. And transportation bicyclists sometimes are out when the bike path is closed. Usually I'd say, yeah, whatever on the bike path being closed, but I've been stopped by the police while riding my bicycle on the bike path. It was the Delta De Anza Trail. It must have been my flamethrower headlight that alerted him to my presence there. But nonetheless, he lit me up and pulled me over. So we need an alternate to using the bike path parallel to Interstate 680 on public streets, continuous bike lanes. Thank you.
Thank you, committee member Olson. Looks like we have Robert with a hand up. Robert, can we hear you? Nope. Can't hear you. So maybe we'll have to come back to Chair Sarmiento after he shuts down and restarts. But if I can be so bold, I don't see any other hands up. I would love to ask a question myself, John. One question is, in San Ramon, we have a few projects that are either intersect with what Caltrans is doing or may intersect. So, specifically, the first thing that popped up was our interest in building overcrossings for the Iron Horse Trail in several locations and kind of removing the at-grade crossing below those overcrossings and the impacts of that on vehicle throughput and the positive impacts on the cycling community for those crossings. And I don't know the numbers you showed there. I looked at the map and wrote them down, so I should probably double check and see whether you have those planned to include. But Crow Canyon overcrossings next, and we have some cash, and we're looking to get more grants to build that. So would love to make sure that's on your radar. And then the other is the monies that came in for the Bollinger Park and Ride related to the regional bus. And there's some work Stephanie Who's doing over at CCTA and working with Sunset and the city to possibly relocate that hub into the center of the new transportation district, the walking district, and the near city center, so that we can have a transit center that's right next to the center of the action and where all the housing is going to be built. So keep your eyes on that, and we'd love to make sure that that project's also in the mix. Is got any answer to that, or is it just like you'll check it out, or should I send you links to those projects, or what's next step for those?
Yeah,
three?
I'm not too familiar with the Park and Ride project, but we've been working with Stephanie Hu very closely. But I mean, if there's any additional information you want to share, that'd be great. With the Iron Horse Trail crossing projects, I'm pretty sure they're included in the countywide plan. And so we're including those in our CMCP as well. But let me double check on that, but I'm almost positive on that.
All right, great, John. And then just to build on Committee Member Olson's comment about parallel routes. Yes, Iron Horse Trail is awesome, but then we also want to build parallel routes. And we're looking to do a redo of our bicycle master plan this year, just to update. But there's this kind of San Ramon Valley Boulevard parallel route, but then there's also kind of a more of a northern route that's been kicked around, developed. And we have some an area that's really difficult for us to deal with as far as the planning issues go. It's the between Acosta and the top of the hill there on Bollinger. Been an ongoing problem for cyclists and peds for years. I'm not sure how we're going to address that, but I'll try to keep you informed as we move forward with our update. When is the kind of the deadline for us to get you projects that we think need to end up in this?
We're trying to get our project list more or less finalized by early August, if possible. Yeah.
Great. Okay, that's my array of questions. It looks like we have Robert back again with an attempt to speak. Robert.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, how to switch to the earbuds here. I do have, thank you for covering the Vice Chair Weeks, but I do have one comment for John. Just to make sure or confirm if the county, I think about 3 years ago at this point, the county adopted or developed the Iron Horse Corridor Active Transportation Study, and I'm curious if the CMCP that you are developing, Caltrans developing, is aware of that, is incorporated, the recommendations from that study.
Yeah, we're still reviewing that study, and we'll try to incorporate the recommendations from that study.
Okay, all right, yeah, thank you for affirming on that.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, any other committee comments on this item before I jump to public comment? Okay, seeing no hands up, I'll turn it over to public comment. Any members of the public have any questions for John or Caltrans staff? Okay, I'm not seeing any. So thank you, John, and thank you, Matt, for providing the update on this item.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, we'll move on to item C on the regular agenda, which is an update of the on the overall work program for the Countywide Transportation Plan 2050. And this item will be presented by John Huang from CCTA. John?
Yeah, good afternoon, Chair Sarmiento, committee members. John Huang, Director of Planning for the Contra Costa Transportation Authority. I have 40 slides that I'm going to share with you tonight, this afternoon. I'm kidding. You guys, thanks for laughing. I want to share my screen and then kind of go through this real quick. We'll be bringing this project back many times as this committee. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Let me know when you see it. You see this. So last week, I actually presented this at our board, and I'm just sharing the same presentation. CCTA is starting our process of developing the overall the countywide transportation plan, and one of the first steps is we've developed an overall work program which lays out the roadmap of how to update the CTP. This time around, we're calling it 2050, because by the time we're done, it'll be 25 years to 2050. We're coining this planning for tomorrow's transportation. So if that sticks, you're going to hear about that phrase a lot. So the overall work program, hopefully you had a chance to peruse through it, but it's a short document. There's 20 pages. I'll go through the highlight of that document, and then at the end, I'll be glad to answer any questions. So just to take a step back, as you all know, A lot of you have participated in the updates of the sub-regions action plans. There's 4 sub-regions, and we completed those 5 action plans. The board for the RTPCs recommended approval. So we actually brought this to our CCTA Authority Board back in April to receive the drafts, and ultimately the information in these action plans will be considered and rolled into the CTP in some capacity. There were a lot of regional transportation objectives identified throughout these action plans, and this is a short list of what was in it. It really covers, as you all know, all modes of transportation, almost of traffic, and a lot of different indices. So again, all these would be reviewed, looked into, and we'll incorporate into the performance elements of the CTP. We're right here in phase 1 of the whole process, and we're anticipating this process will take about 18 months. Right now, we're in phase 1. Some of the key items in this phase is to develop a vision and goals for the CTP, preparing the 10 policy papers, which I'll go into it a little bit. And also, we have to do an environmental impact report for this CTP. If you've been around for a while, you know that the last CTP was updated in 2017, and all the prior CTPs didn't have an EIR related to it. So right now we're just in phase 1, and it's going to be a nice process going forward. We don't do this in a silo. We've structured a committee organization. You see right there, the CCTA committees, which include, actually, I probably missed the CBB back. I'm sorry about that. So the technical coordinating committees, Citizen Advisory Committee, the RTPCs, and we have a stakeholders advisory group that we formed that comprises of CBOs, community-based organizations, and non-government organizations, and advocacies. Also, we have public input. The public is the most important of this whole process. There's always a challenge to reach out to the public. I'll go into a little bit more detail of what we have planned, but all these rolls up to a CTP task force that will be newly developed, which will be consisting of RTPC representatives, and as well as MTC. And ultimately, everything rolls up to the planning committee before it gets to the authority board. So these are some of the agencies, organizations that will be part of this whole stakeholders outreach process. And I'm not going to go through all this, but there are a variety of inputs that we need to get from these folks. So the 2 presentations that you heard previously here for the San Paulo Avenue Multimodal Corridor Study and the CMCP for the 680 corridor, all that information, plus other projects and programs, initiatives that CCTA is working on or have completed recently, will be considered for the CTP update process. We need to fold all that information in and leverage the work that has been done already. As far as outreach is concerned, public outreach, I want to emphasize, is huge. We have what we calling a summer event outreach series that we're doing at every city. We're presenting a pop-up event at each one of the cities. And also we're going to be utilizing our task force and planning committees. One other group that I didn't mention is that we we form a Public Managers Association, PMA group. So there's, I think, 4 members from this, basically from the city managers group. So they will be informing us throughout the whole process also. These are the series, the summer event series that I mentioned. We started in April and it's going to go through all the way to October. We try to get at least once in each jurisdiction. So I mentioned earlier the policy papers. There's 10 altogether. And important to this committee, of course, is active transportation. But there's other categories, including the obvious categories: transit, that we're adding equity, and of course the innovation and technology, which is really what CCTA is about in looking towards the future. The vision is important to this whole process. We will be working with our consultants and ultimately draft something up for our board to develop, to come up with what is the vision for the CTP, and that'll be the starting point and guide the whole process. So once you have a vision, we need goals. So this is the goals that I've taken from the last transportation expenditure plan, TEP. These have been vetted, and again, they're dated, they're back in 2020, but we can certainly use this as a starting point and develop new goals for the new CTP. This is a schedule. We're right here in July, and we're looking at finishing the process towards the end of 2024 and getting the board to adopt the new CTP the beginning of 2025. So some of these are some of the questions that we'll be addressing. Are there additional items we need to consider for the overall work program? Any ideas for outreach? Outreach is always a challenge. I think we need to do more. Do we go to each city council? Is that a viable option? Or do we have more events? Anyways, that's just some questions that we have. And then also from this group, we want to get your overall input for the process. Again, this is just the beginning of the whole process, and you'll all have plenty of opportunities to provide comments. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that presentation, John. Turn it over to the committee, and if they have any comments, please raise your virtual or real hand. I do see committee member Olson had his hand up, so go ahead. Committee member Olson, you go first.
Yeah, thank you. John, could you flip through your 40 slides and go back to the one where you list all the pop-ups, please? And as part of the vision, my second point is equity is the most important thing. CCTA was designed to move cars faster. A short time ago, CCTA decided, well, maybe we should go to the operational end rather than building wider freeways, and that's good. But even more important is equity for the bicyclists, the pedestrians, and transit, as well as moving the automobiles. Equity. 1/4 of the money should go to the cars, 1/4 of the money to the pedestrians, 1/4 of the money, I'm being facetious now, can you tell? I understand that moving automobiles is the reason CCTA exists, but a little scrap on the side for the pedestrians and the bicyclists would certainly be appreciated. Equity is the way we describe that. Thank you. And leave your public outreach page up while everybody else comments. Thank you.
All right, any other committee member comments or questions? Vice Chair Weeks.
Hi, thanks for presenting. Since we have the public outreach page up, I was wondering if there's any chance we can get our hands on some social media that we can push out for our July 29th farmers market at City Center Bishop Ranch. Do you have something like that I could push out through City, or could we grab that from someone that you could connect us to?
Yes, Member Weeks. Yeah, so I have to check with our external affairs department. As you know, we're in transition right now. We have an interim director in place, and we have a consultant team helping out. So I'm pretty sure we'll have some information, but let me check on that, and then certainly I'll forward it to the whole committee through the chair. Thank you.
All right, great. And if there's others that we think might be good for you to include, I assume we could email them your way for consideration.
Yes.
All right, great. Thanks.
All right, any other committee member questions or comments? All right, if none, I do have just some comments for John. You do have the public outreach page up, and I was curious if you could, and I have to follow up with you on that. If you could, I don't see any areas in unincorporated counties. So I was curious if could hold some events at some of the unincorporated counties, say like Alamo or Rodeo or Bay Point, etc.
I know we did not leave the unincorporated county out, and I just don't know exactly where that event is, but I will get back to you, Chair, because I know we identified 20 altogether. Yeah, I don't know offhand. I don't know, Matt or Colin, do you know offhand? Do you recall? If you guys are still on the line.
I don't recall, but I am seeing 2 events in San Ramon, so that gets us to 20. So we may need to talk to our organizing folks.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
All right, that'd be great. And then a couple other comments. I kind of want to add what committee member Olson said. Just with this CTP, given the kind of the changing landscape of transportation, there's a greater emphasis on active transportation, and we have, and it haven't seen it brought up, but I'm sure there's SB 743 and vehicle miles traveled. So I guess when I one of the slides or the discussion about congestion relief and operations, one of the goals, and I think at least for this CTP, having more of a shift to multimodal transportation, etc. I'd like to see that more emphasis on that in this this latest CTP. And then the final, just kind of a clarifying question, John, I did see on one slide here, maybe I missed this on I think slide 5, there was the initials KPI, and I'm not sure what that stands for.
I'm sorry, Key Performance Index.
Okay, thank you. And those are my comments. And I see committee member Dugan with his hand up. Turned over to you.
Thank you, Chair Sarmiento, and thank you, John, for the presentation. I am curious at the public events and the community engagement portion of this. What information are you hoping to get from the community, and what questions are you asking briefly?
Yeah, so thanks for giving me the opportunity to kind of expand on these outreach. So I did not mention this, but I will now. So these outreach meetings are not only for the countywide transformation plan, but it's for all the other projects and programs that CCTA is working on. So it'll cover a wide array of different programs and projects that we want to share with the public, trying to get public feedback. So CCP is just one of many different projects, and each one of the projects will have its own flyer, and it'll be staffed by CCTA. I think right now our plan is to have 2 CCTA staff at each event, and we'll have a a QPR, am I saying it right? The QPR, the code where folks can scan the code, and then it'll lead everyone to a website with more expanded information.
All right, does that answer your question, Community Member Dugan?
Yeah, I am not a resident of Contra Costa County. So I will try to find that survey. I'm just curious because we're constant all of us public agencies always trying to figure out the best way to engage with the public on these things, what information is actually helpful, how to make it as easy for them to give us that information, etc. And so I'm really curious about all of these projects and like what you're doing and what others are doing. So, but this is helpful. I'll go look further. Thanks.
Yeah, and all the information reside on our website, and thanks for reminding me. There is a survey that we're putting together also. Try to keep it short and sweet, and probably 3 to 5 questions at the most. That when they scan the document, they go on our website and they can answer the questions, with short answers.
Okay, any other committee comments before turning it over to the public? Okay, seeing no further committee hands up, any members of the public like to comment on this item? So please raise your hand. All right, seeing none. Okay, John, thank you for that update on the CTP. All right, now we'll move on to item D, which is other business. Are there any other business or information that's CCTA staff or committee members would like to discuss? So please raise your hand. All right, committee member Olson.
Yeah, it's me again. Sorry. The bridge over Highway 4 in Brentwood is getting close to being finished. It's a little bit behind schedule because of weather last winter and birds and other things, but it's getting close to being completed. We people who are going to use it regularly would like to know when the official ribbon cutting is going to be. And thank you to CCTA for spending over $13 million on this freeway crossing. We really appreciate it. And finally, at the western touchdown of this bridge, the city of Brentwood is just permitted the construction of a 540,000 square foot Costco with attendant 32 pump gas station. There are no electric vehicle charging stations in the 865 vehicle parking places there. There are no solar panels on the 2/3 of an acre roof surface. The city of Brentwood wants this store to locate there that much that they did not require any mitigations whatsoever.
Okay. Okay, I'll move next to committee member Riley.
Yes, thanks. And I think I might actually just toss this over to Kirsten. I was just going to mention our summer bike challenge program that's been running all summer. It's getting close to wrapping up now. It's a community event that has grids of various locations throughout every city in Contra Costa. We encourage people to go bicycle to them. They register for weekly challenges where we hand out gift cards for people who win raffles and that. And then we have a big iPad grand prizes. We also do in-person tabling events to encourage people to come bike out to them, 3 in each city in Contra Costa. And so that's been going on all summer. It's wrapping up soon. I don't know, Kirsten, did you have anything to? Kirsten really is the main person that came up with it and the main driving force in it. So
no, I'll just add on that we have about 3,000 people participating countywide, so pretty good. A lot of families and people of all ages, so that's great. and I don't mean to pop in front of Colin, but since my mic is on, I would like to send me an email if you have any ideas, but the Charge Up Contra Costa e-bike rebate program, which is the $500 e-bike rebate program for people who live in Richmond, San Pablo, Bay Point, Pittsburgh, Antioch, and parts of Concord, is not moving the rebates as fast as I would like. So I would trying to do more outreach, and I have some social media planned for that program to try and get the word out there. But if anybody has contacts in those communities who could help me spread the word, send me an email so I can get the information out. Thank you.
All right. Next, we'll move to Colin from CCTA.
Sure. Thank you, Chair Sarmiento. And Kirsten, proud to report that I was at a bike shop in Berkeley over the weekend, and they were prominently displaying the e-bike rebate for Contra Costa. So was pleased to see that. Just wanted to quickly also mention that there's countywide local safety action planning that's ongoing. We've been coordinating with all the jurisdictions over the last couple years to make it clear in terms of the scoping, but please do feel free to reach out directly if you have any questions or want to discuss. So that's working with Kimley Horn and Kittleson for each of the subregions and the local jurisdictions. There's also an ongoing scoping effort to address some of the tasks and priorities that this committee has suggested over the last couple of years. So including the charging and bike parking and micromobility parking efforts, as well as the micromobility policy effort countywide. A lot of that stuff is moving forward, and wanted to see if anyone from West County has an update on the micromobility in Richmond or otherwise, or San Ramon, if the pilot has any update.
I don't have any specific update, but we've heard that it's coming online soon. So I know City of Richmond is working on revamping theirs. I don't know when it's supposed to actually come on. I've heard various months, and I think that they're just kind of having just a little difficulty getting it going, but they fully intend to bring back their bike share.
And this is Chris from San Ramon. I have an update, which is good and bad, but I'll start with the bad, that it looks like Bird did not have the capability of getting a good enough operator that was able to remove scooters that were misplaced within 3 hours. So they informed me that they could not find anybody to run the system, and that they wanted to step away from the project and not relaunch. So for now, we are going back to the original list of people who bid on the RFP for the area and trying to see if they are interested in moving forward with some kind of project. I've also reached out to Danville a little bit just to see what they're doing, because they were going to be the next area for this to launch in. So it sounds like they're working on some other projects, maybe related to electric vehicles of some sort. So I'm trying to see if I can get up to speed on that in the coming weeks. And I'll try to give you guys an update about where we decide we're going to move here. It wasn't that the system wasn't working for our community. We were just in the middle of fine tuning it. There was just an upheaval in the e-scooter world, which I'm sure you've read about. And they lost a lot of staff and decided to step back and focus on specific stuff. And they decided that they just couldn't give us the level of service that we require. So that's where we are, Colin. And I'm upset about it, but it's also good because there was some problems with it, and we weren't getting the level of service we wanted to see. So we aren't giving up. It's just, I'm calling it a pause, like everybody else who prefers not to say quitting, but I'm basically just stepping back, and then we're going to look at a new project and seeing if we can build on the original RFP submittals. Thanks.
Okay, any other final committee member comments? Okay, all right, we'll move on to item E, which is upcoming subjects for discussion. Are there any items that committee members would like to discuss at a future meeting? If so, please raise your hand. All right, committee member Pinkham.
Yeah, I may have said this before, but I think we ought to have one session on various aspects of electric bikes and scooters. As everybody knows, there's an issue of speed in the wrong places and so on. But there are pros and cons too. I have one myself, being ancient, with body parts wearing out, and there are certain advantages. One, I can blow away the young guys. No, I don't do that. But in any event, I'm not sure who would be appropriate. We could maybe approach people at Bike East Bay. Maybe they've been dealing with that kind of issue. I don't know. But any suggestions about who we might help or snag to make presentations? I'm not sure. If the committee is interested, of course. Oh, just think about it anyway.
Well, I could discuss with Colin when it comes when developing a future agenda. I'll keep this in mind, committee member Pinkham. So thank you. I did see committee member Olson's hand, so I'll go with him first, and then committee member Dugan. So, committee member Olson.
Yeah, thank you. Two things. Number one, the bike racks on the front of buses are designed for mid-1980s racing bikes of the wheelbase and the tire width. So a fat-tired, even a normal mountain bike has trouble fitting into the rack on the front of the bus. We might think about offering a suggestion to the bus operators to get into the 21st century and set their racks up so they can handle all manner of different bikes. And I forgot the other thing, one of the ravages of age. So thanks, I'll shut up now.
All right, thank you. And then next, committee member Dugan.
Thanks, everyone. Is there a way, how would you prefer, Chair Sarmiento, that we, as things come up and we have ideas on agenda items, I'm not coming up with any right now, but I know there are a couple of items that I was thinking about before that I'd like to share with you. Should I email you directly or Colin or what?
I think you could email Colin and me, or email Colin, CC me, and that goes for the whole group. That would work.
Yeah, I feel like there should be an ongoing sort of like when we all think of something to talk about here, I think that we could. I want to feel free to send those your way. Thanks.
Vice Chair Weeks.
So I have a couple. I'll just, every time anybody asks, I'll throw a couple out there. But I like the idea that committee member Dugan said that place we can go on, maybe a Google Doc that we can pour our minds out onto. But first, something I've run into a lot lately is bicycle counting, cameras versus loops versus heat sensing cameras, and where should we be investing our money? I've heard there's a move away to cameras, but then I've heard pluses and minuses of that. It'd be interesting to get a presentation on that and look at some cutting edge technology so that we don't have to be waving our arms around or laying our bikes on the ground to try to get a sensor to work. I heard that there's some kind of heat sensing cameras that are a little better than the iTerra style. So some kind of presentation about that would be great, and something that we can work on for the region to get the best quality bicycle ped sensors out there. Also, I'm going to beat a dead horse here with the bike parking e-lockers, and also making those e-lockers capable to handle, similar to Committee Member Olson's comment, bigger, taller bikes. A lot of the e-bikes are designed in a Dutch style, which personally is uncomfortable to me, but some people find it very comfortable. And so they're very tall and they can't fit into those lockers, or they're too long. And also charging. I know Colin was talking about this a little bit, or alluding to it, but I think we need to kind of look at how we're going to be charging in public spaces, e-scooters, e-bikes, those kinds of things in the future. So I'd be super interested in hearing maybe from Swift Mile about how they can offer multiple protocol racking for e-scooters and bikes, and whatever is going to be in our future. So there's two to chew on, and I'm happy to put more on a list if we have a chance. Thanks.
Colin, go ahead. Sorry.
Sure, I appreciate the input. And I have had a conversation 2 or 3 years ago with Colin Roche at Swift Mile. And we can make sure that this committee members have an opportunity to provide input on the draft scope. So be looking forward to everyone's input on that. And I do think that VTA or one of the other CTAs is working on a some sort of pilot study in terms of getting these types of mobility devices on transit. So I'll, if there's more information, or when there's more information, I'll be sure to bring that to this group if you're all interested. And I feel like there was one other thing I needed to respond to. I think video detection was one of them. So I wrote that down because we had been meeting with a number of different possibilities, and some of which that actually respond in real time using AI and other technologies to affect the traffic signal timing to improve safety and responsiveness to people using trail crossings and that type of thing. So yeah, more to come on that.
Committee Member Dugan.
Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah. In response to the counting subject, I know we want to end this meeting, so I apologize. I just have one quick thing I want to say, and then on the counters, we have a lot of counters out there. We have 3 different kinds, and we are exploring cameras. And so I'm happy if this is on the agenda, I'm happy to share that information and participate in the discussion in that way and share what we're doing, if that's helpful. And then also, we have taken a really, really close look at our e-bike policy here at the Park District, and have researched, the safety and environmental impacts of e-bikes versus traditional bikes. Done a literature review of several studies throughout the country, and have presented at the Park Advisory Committee, as well as our board executive committee, which is a subset of our board. A policy change has yet to come before our full board. But essentially what staff is recommending is that e-bikes be allowed, class 1 and 2 e-bikes be allowed wherever traditional bikes are allowed. And that goes for dirt trails as well as paved trails. Class 3 is another story at this point, but I just wanted to give you all an update, because I feel that if we are successful, if our board does adopt that policy, it is going to have ripple effects for many other parks and rec agencies, but maybe transportation as well, as far as being a model of what can happen. So stay tuned on that. I'm not sure when it will go to the board at this point, but I just wanted to give you an update that we're kind of pushing something forward around e-bikes.
All right, thank you. Any other final comments on this item E, the upcoming subjects for discussion? Okay, hearing none, seeing none, move on to item 5, which is adjournment. I'm going to adjourn this meeting, adjourn to the next regularly scheduled meeting, which is proposed for Monday, September 25th